Hello everyone. I'm going to wait a couple seconds to see if some people jump on. Today we're going to be talking about block 7. So we only got 2 more blocks after this one, not very much. And then we're going to be putting our quilts together. So excited. So it's about 8:24 here on the West Coast. So if you're watching this later and I'm not answering your questions, it's because it's no longer live. So right now it's live, and as soon as some people jump on, let me know you're there. Say hi so I can make sure I can see comments. I want to make sure I can see comments before I start this thing up. So yeah, block 7. I know a lot of people, you know, are a little nervous about block 7. It's a lot different than all the other blocks, and so, you know, it's might be a little more challenging if you are not doing scant 1/4 inch seams, and I'll go into that a little bit. So hi, okay, Anita and Ann, I'm glad I can see comments. I hope you guys are all having a nice evening. Yay, thumbs up, cool. Okay, so I don't know, it's like, how long do you wait for more people to show up? So I'm just gonna go into it, I guess. If you guys have questions along the way, let me know. I want to make sure I can answer as many questions as you guys have. If you guys are posting pictures on Instagram, I want to show the hashtags again because not a lot of people are using it, and this hashtag is the one that National Quilters Circle is looking for, the NQC Quilt Challenge. That's the one they're looking for, so use that on your pictures on Instagram. So I guess block 7 is a little different. It's kind of like a log cabin. The center square is like a log cabin. Log cabin, basically, you have a center square and you add blocks around it. This is kind of like a fourth of a log cabin, I guess, right? If you're using a scant 1/4 inch seam, it should work out perfectly. Everything should match up perfectly like all your other blocks. If you are using a smaller seam or a larger seam, you might have some issues. I know I don't want you to go out and start doing a different seam allowance because you don't want one 16.5 inch block and all the rest of yours are 15 or 16. Because I know other people, they're using a lot bigger. I kind of did a test block so that you guys could see the difference. So here's my 1/4 inch foot, and here's just my presser foot that came with my machine. If you can see from the center out, it's just slightly bigger, right? So if you were to, let's see if we can see these. So the seam that's on the top is my 1/4 inch seam. And then the seam below that is the one that I did with my presser foot. So it's just barely bigger. You might not think that's going to make a difference, but it does. When you add it up, this seam plus this seam plus this seam plus this seam, it will add up, and it'll make, when you attach your top seam, this seam's going to be a little bit bigger, so this line will be shorter. Same if you are using a smaller seam allowance. Like some people are using an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. That'll make your strips too short, which I guess it's better to be too long than too short. Because if it's too long, you can always trim it. If it's too short, then you're like, oh no. So if you know your blocks are ending up bigger than 16.5 inches, I would recommend making your strips a little bit larger, just so that you know you're not like going to sew it on, it's going to be way too short. So maybe, and then like either you can attach your strip and measure like this section. So I kind of did this one with scrap fabric. You attach this, and then I would say measure this. This should be 6.5 inches. This should be 6.5 inches. But if yours is ending up bigger, I would measure that and say, okay, that's what size this strip needs to be. And then when you complete this, that's how long this strip needs to be. I hope you guys understand that. It's kind of like when you're doing the accurate 1/4 inch seam, you're subtracting a 1/2 inch for both 1/4 inch seam allowances. Another issue, people might be having wonkiness. I kind of did this. So if you need to make sure your strips are continuously lined up. If you get to the end and one slips up a little bit above the other one, it's going to make your edge kind of wonky, and then it won't be a perfect rectangular square. Either you can, look at it and go, uh-oh, I need to seam rip that and fix it. That's probably the best thing to do. If not, after you do each 2 strips, I would recommend, if you have a large square, take your large square and make sure it is square. If, say your lines are a little wavy, you might want to slightly trim up the tops and the sides if, you aren't doing straight seams. Also, when you're pressing it open, don't be, ripping it open to press it, and then, when you press it open, you just want to kind of, open it with your fingers, finger press it open, and then take your iron and press it down. So then it will be like a flat seam. It won't be pressed open all wavy. And then once you get the first 2 on, just keep going. Adding another strip. If you guys have any questions, shout out your questions, okay? Just for reference, I guess, if your seam is an accurate 1/4 inch scant, which scant basically means it's a 1/4 inch including the width of your needle, the width of your thread. Because when you open this up, you're not pressing it open fully, right? And it's gonna account for that little bit in fold amount. And basically, when you're adding them together, you're minusing 1/4 inch for each, right? So for reference, this square is the 4.5. When this is completed, this will be 6.5. When this strip is added on, that'll be 8.5. When this strip is added on, that'll be 10.5. And then this whole square, if you're using a scant 1/4 inch seam, it will be 12.5 inches. When you get to this point, you're going to want to match up this one to this side. So these should match perfectly. This should be 12.5 inches long, and this one should be 12.5 inches long, and they'll match up. And then you'll sew them in. That'll minus the 1/2 inch there, and then this strip will be 16.5 inches, and that'll match up to your top. If you are someone that isn't having a 1/2 inch scant and this block is becoming too small, your options are either you could add an extra strip here, this edge, attach your strips, and then square it up. It might, and then you just say, hey, that's how I meant it to be. I wanted it to look like that. It wouldn't be this exact block, but you would get the same size block throughout. Because you're using the same seam allowance on this, that's going to be the same length as all your other blocks. So you want your center square to match up with this. So I haven't tried a whole block at a little bit bigger than a scant, so I'm not sure. Is that a problem people are having? Is their center block ending up too short or too big compared to this? Probably too small? I don't know. I'm getting a lot of highs. Hi. Hi, Bonnie. Hi, Lucille. I know a lot of people aren't on right now because this is a worldwide challenge, and so I want to try to answer any questions that people might have. Yeah, so basically, log cabin for your center, and you want this center block to end up the same size as your side block. Another thing I noticed on a couple people's blocks, you probably didn't notice this strip And let's see, this is the side one. The side one are actually like going different ways, right? So if you sew both these strips going the same way, it's not going to give this same look of the block. See, so these two strips, like in the instructions, you see, you want to sew these this way and those that way. So your whole, Lucille, your whole entire block was whole entire block is a little bit smaller, or just the center part? I would recommend, like, you could take this color and add a little strip here and a little strip here to kind of make it a, you know, a little bit of a border when you add these two layers on. Gianna, I'm not sure why the video is not working for you. You might need to go in and then go back out. I can't write a message right now as I'm doing the video. So Janet, you want to refresh the video and then it will work for you. Yay, Judy, I'm glad you like it. I know some people just didn't like it at all and decided not to put it in their quilt, which I understand. If you don't like it, don't put it in. Go for something else. Make up your own block. Take a block that was already in the quilt and double it. You know? Let's see. Sorry, I had to pause that for a second. Daughter decided to go talk to her. She took a nap earlier today, and so it's making her not want to go to sleep, and she was just yelling for me. Okay, so your center part came out a 1/2 inch larger. So let's see. So maybe if your center block is coming out a 1/2 inch larger, sew an inch strip on this side and this side, and attach these to the tops. I would line it up toward the top, not the bottom. Line this strip up at the top. Backwards. Yeah. At the top. Line this at the top, and then square it up. So add your extra strips on these sides, sew your strips on there, and then square it up. That might help you. Hi, Kelly. So you're just joining us. You can go back and rewatch the video when it's done. I'm going to save it to the video section of the group. Yeah, Lori, other people are doing these for the 4 corners too, which I like that. That looks really cool. And then, because some people are like, oh, I want to do a whole extra row, you could just do 4 of these and boom, you got your 3 extra blocks. Here's my Heather Bailey version. So I wasn't very careful about the directional print. My top ones are facing up, but these ones are facing down, which I'm not going to redo it. I like it. It's fine. It's good. So yeah, so if you, I guess, do you have any questions? I don't know what else to say except for, you know, the only way, if you're not doing the accurate seam allowance, you're going to have to adjust your center block somehow, either adding to it, around it. That would be my best solution, I think. If anybody else has any other solutions, they might, because you don't want this one to end up 16.5 inches and then all your other ones are 16 or 15.5. Good, Lucille. All yours. So I want, it's probably because all your other blocks, you know, since these have more seams in them, they're gonna, that tiny bit of offness, you know, that tiny bit of being a little bit larger than scant is gonna add up. And since these have, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, it'll have 4 seams where the other ones only had, you know, 2 seams right here and here. Because, or right here and right here, because this equals 4 inches finished, this equals 4 inches finished, this equals 4 inches finished. So if you add those little tiny bits in there, that's going to be more than was there and there. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, you know, it's math. I know a lot of people don't like to think about math, but when you're quilting, math is important. if you want it to come out correctly. Because I used to always just use my presser foot that came with my quilt, because I'm like, that's easier. When I draw out my patterns, I would account for that. I'm like, okay, I want my quilt to be 42 inches or smaller than 42 inches because it's a baby quilt. So I'll just use this, and I know my pattern says it's going to be 42 inches, but I know it's going to probably end up being 41, 40. Just because all those little seams add up of being a little bit off. You know, you never really think about that, but when you once I started writing patterns, I wanted it to be more accurate, because I wanted to make my own quilt, see if it was accurate, because I don't want to be sending it out to you guys and it not be accurate. So I got this foot. And so, not with the last 2 blocks, but if you do your next quilt, go get a 1/4 inch seam or foot, or put tape on your sewing machine at the 1/4 inch seam mark so that it will line up for your next one. It will just make it more accurate, and it'll come out the size you want it to come out. It won't be smaller. Since this original quilt is supposed to be 56.5 inches square, if you're going to want that wider, maybe add a border on the outside of it. Can you go back and measure your seam allowances? Maybe one made a difference. Oh, Janet's saying, go back and measure your seam allowances, which you can do that by the back of it, kind of measure it, or even from the front. Like this finished one, since it has this 1/4 inch seam, that's going to be 4 1/4. These should all be 2 inches. So if you go through and measure and say, hey, this one's 2 1/4, maybe you cut this strip at 2 3/4, you know? So that's a good way to kind of troubleshoot your quilt, see why it's off. Thank you, Lucille. I'm like, my goal in quilt making, she said that the directions have been well written. My goal in quilt pattern making is for anyone from beginner to advanced quilter to make a quick and easy quilt and have fun. And I just want all the directions to be as clear as they can, so that anyone could just like, hey, I want to start quilting. Let's try this pattern. I kind of had my husband look over it and say, hey, he doesn't sew. So I'm like, can you look through this and see, does that make sense to you? Does, if you've never sewn before, so if you pick this up, do you think you could figure that out and make a quilt? And he's like, yeah, but he's not going to make one. But I kind of trying to convince him, like, hey, maybe you should start quilting with me. You could be my quilt tester. Yeah, Kelly, the tape idea on your machine, you could do that for a 1/4 inch. Or also, I know some places, where was it? Might have been connectingthreads.com, sells this, like, it's sticky, and it's like, it's not very high. Maybe the height of your ruler, and you just stick it, you measure it. It comes with a little guide to measure it and everything, and I think it was only like $5, and you measure on your machine, and it shows you where to put it on your machine with the little guide, and you can butt your fabric right up to it, which is kind of cool. So, like, even if you did a couple layers of tape, it might, like, bump it up a little, so you can just kind of guide it along, your fabric along that tape. Shirley, thank you. I like it as corner blocks too, because I was like, I was kind of thinking about making my 2 quilts a little bit bigger. Because, like, I'm short, but a lot of other people aren't short. And so 56.5 inch works great for me, but if I were to gift these to someone or sell them, I might want them a little bit longer. So I'm kind of thinking about, maybe making these corner blocks too. That's kind of interesting. I've seen a few people with finished quilts already doing that, and I think it looks nice. Thanks. Yeah. Is there any other questions you guys have about this? So it's pretty, you know, once you get that down, I guess, if you're figuring out what the problem is, either figure out, did I make my strips the right size? Also, accurate strips. I know when you're cutting And if you don't have any grips on the back of your roller and you're cutting 2.5-inch strips, sometimes, I know it happens with me, I don't have any grips, your ruler slides and maybe that strip isn't completely 2.5 inches wide. Maybe at the top it's a little smaller, a little bigger, and that could make your block a little wonky. Also, you know, like I said, sew each one on. This should be 6.5 inches. Trim it, square it up. Sew this one on. It should be 8.5 inches. Square it up. This one should be 10.5 inches. Square it up. Also, like sometimes when you're sewing, fabric stretches, right? So this is stretchy, and this one's stretchy. So when you sew them, one might stretch more than the other, and so it might end up like this part might come up further than this part, and you just kind of want to straighten it out so that when you sew them, you have a straight baseline. So this, you would, you know, just put it on your ruler, line it up with your lines here, your 4.5-inch line, and if any tiny bits stick out, just trim them up. Make them nice and straight. Yeah, do you guys have any other questions? I'm trying to think. So, I know some people were like, they worked ahead, and so they did the other blocks. So I'm sure we're gonna, now that, and they were a little confused about 7. So now that they have 7 done, we might start seeing a lot more finished quilts, which is cool. I like seeing all the pretty quilts. It's, you know, design coming from your head and seeing other people make it is really cool for me. And I just want to thank all of you for joining the group and joining the challenge. It's really like a dream come true for me to have this many people making my quilt. I know the group's almost up to 15,000. Before the video I looked and it said 14,700 something. So I don't know, by next week maybe we'll be almost up to 16,000. And last time I checked was like 2 weeks ago. We were like at 20,000, like 700 I think, participants. I haven't checked with Bailey. I need to check with her and see like how many we're at. That's like 20,000 people making my quilt. That's really, really cool. Really cool. Am I doing another challenge, Mary? I know the National Quilters Circle is going to have another challenge, so they're keeping this group open for you all to just stay put for the next challenge. They haven't, they don't have a specific date, but they will keep you informed. So if you're on their newsletter or if you're a follower of their Facebook page or Instagram page, those are great ways to stay notified, because I know this group is really big and it's hard to see notifications in it sometimes. So I would recommend either being signed up for their newsletter or go follow their Facebook page. You can, you know, at the top of Facebook, search National Quilters Circle, or do that on Instagram, and then they'll announce when the next challenge is. I might join you guys in making the next challenge. They're going to use other designers. You know, they did ask me, but I have a lot of projects that, like work in progresses, a pile of quilts I need to finish, and you know, having little kids, I don't get very much time to craft and quilt and sew and knit. So I'm gonna let someone else take the next challenge, and I'm working on some new quilts. So if you guys do like my directions and my patterns, you can follow me on my Facebook page, which is the Shop Happy Cloud Creations. Facebook, Shop Happy Cloud Creations. I can put the link in the description when I'm done with the video. Or also, I'm on Instagram at Happy Cloud Creations. You can just, it's just the @ symbol with Happy Cloud Creations. And I have a new pattern I'm working on, which I'm really excited about. It has some geese in it, has some half square triangles. Yeah, and so when I'm ready for testers, I usually ask people on my Facebook page or on my Instagram page, is like, hey, do you want to test my new pattern? So if you guys would like to do that, you should go follow me. And then hopefully in the future I'll have some free patterns on my Craftsy page. I know this Snowy Day Quilt Sampler pattern, I'll put the full-length pattern on my Craftsy page when I'm done. So it'll have the cover photo, it'll have the diagram where you can color in, and all that kind of stuff. All the full cutting instructions too for all the blocks. It'll be all up front. So let's see, I'm rambling. Is there any more questions? I'm trying to think what you might need to know. I know, so I don't know if I'm going to do it with one of these quilts, but I just got in the mail for my Janome, I needed the free motion quilting for low shank models. So I went to their website and I looked up my model, and it told me what free motion quilting foot I needed. And then I just went on Amazon and I searched the kind I needed, and I got it for like, I think it was like $40. It's not that bad, but it came with the actual foot, and then it came with like, I haven't tried it yet. It came with the circular one, and then it came with the open toe one, and then it came with this clear one. So I'm going to test them all out, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do it on one of these quilts just because I want a lot of practice before I do a big quilt. Maybe I'll try out some placemats or pot holders with it. So thinking ahead, how do you want to quilt your quilt? I know a lot of people are doing quilt as you go. Some people are going to do the whole quilt top. I'm planning on doing the whole quilt top, and I'll probably use my walking foot, which also I've just found by going to my manufacturer's website, found out which one I needed, and then I ordered it on Amazon. And mine comes with this little guide so that I could, you know, start with one. Let's see, I'll show you with this. I basically started with my center seam. I lined it up on my foot and went down it, basically a 1/4 inch from one of my center seams, and then I measured this 1 inch out from my needle, and I just did inch strips throughout my whole quilt. I basically did horizontal. If you have a longer quilt, I would go horizontal. No, I went horizontal. I'd go diagonally. No. Is that diagonally? Anyways, from top to bottom. Because that way you could roll your quilt up tighter, the thinner way. And it would fit through a domestic machine. Because my throat's not that big. It's probably this big. And I was able to quilt this. This is 56.5 by 56.5. I love doing the challenge. Oh, cool! Kelly, your daughter is joining you in the challenge. That's fun. How did I get the name for this quilt? So, yeah, vertical. There you go. Vertical. I'm, like, really tired right now. My kids do not want to go to sleep. See my crazy hair. So, I named this, my company is named after my son, Happy Cloud Creations. My son's name is Cloud. And so I thought, I was looking at all these pictures of snow on Instagram, and like, oh, that's so pretty. And then I'm like, oh, I can name the challenge after my daughter. My daughter's name is Snow. So I thought, Snowy Day Quilt Sampler. You can make it in a couple days when it's snowing out, and it's after my daughter. So I thought that would be fun, and when she grows up, she'll be like, oh, cool, that quilt's named after me. So that's how I named it. I don't know. I couldn't think of anything else. I'm very bad at naming quilts. Yeah, the last few ones that I made, I kind of asked my kids, hey, what should I name this? I don't know what to name this. So, yeah, that's how I got it. If you guys have any other questions, so, you know, prepare for ahead. If you want to, walking feet really help out because it pulls the fabric from the top and from the bottom. You see those little grippers? It pulls both layers through at the same time, which is awesome. Before I had my walking foot, it was really hard to get it through the machine. And then because I used to just quilt with my presser foot, and it's just kind of pressing on the top and the bottom sliding through, so it's not very even, you know? Yeah, Mary, I have a basic Janome HD 1000, so it's just, I think it's more for sewing, not quilting, so mine didn't come with any quilting feet. I know if you have a quilting machine, you might have a free motion foot or a walking foot, which is awesome. Mine didn't, so I had to buy them extra, but, you know, I guess that's, you know, my machine was probably a lot less expensive than a fancy smashy quilting machine. Maybe that's why too. It didn't include the feet. Yes. Especially when adding your borders. I don't know what you mean, Janet. Binding, you mean? Walking foot with the binding, too, is nice because it's easy to get through. Yes, walking foot. So I guess I got a big mess here, but kind of wanted, if there's no more questions about block 7, or quilting, quilting, you know, we only have 2 blocks left. Can you believe that, you guys? Oh my goodness. These next 2 blocks should be a cinch for you guys. The construction is pretty similar to the other blocks. You know, half square triangles. Let's see, I have my quilt here. So, you know, next week we got a bunch of half square triangles. Boom. But if you are somebody that wants to do geese, you can see there's geese, and then these corner blocks are just half square triangles. So you could do, you know, 1, 2 geese, 3, all the geese for the center, geese for the sides, geese for the corners. And so since none of these geese are like, you don't have 4 of one kind, I would recommend just doing the basic geese method. Each geese is you're gonna want it to be 8.5 by 4.5 finished or unfinished. So it'll be 4 by 8, but unfinished it'll be 4.5 by 8. After the last block, then what will be next, Annie? Well, week 10, I'm gonna there'll be a blog post with quilt assembly. Basically, it will have a PDF with directions on how to add your sashing. It'll have directions because there's a lot of new people in the group. So I went through the PDF and I made it very detailed. How to like make your backing fabric, because some people need to piece their backing fabric. It has diagrams like all the other patterns, so it'll have visual aids, and then it'll have how to make your binding, how to add your binding. And I just want to say the quilting assembly is a suggestion. You can definitely do it differently. Do it how you like to do it. If you don't like my binding method, I basically put the binding method that was the easiest to explain. Is the first type of binding that the way I finished off my binding when I started out. So it was like the easiest for me at that time. Now I do mine a little differently. There's a lot of great YouTube videos out there. I was going to mention those on week 10. I'll have a video on week 10. If not, I guess like Susie Quilts. I love her binding technique. The way it finishes off, it's not bulky at all. So if you go to her YouTube channel, you can search binding. I like hers a lot. But yeah, so week 10 is going to be quilt assembly. I'm not going to leave you hanging, you know, have all these blocks, but you don't know what to do with them. That'd be crazy. So yeah, we'll learn how to do it all. Do it all. Start to finish. Yeah, do you guys have any more questions? So I'm excited for this. Is, I think, one of my favorite blocks. I like it a lot. I like the shape. I don't know. I like it. It's cool. Yeah, do you have any more questions? If not, let's see. I can't see what time it is. It's almost 9 o'clock, so I know a lot of you guys are up past your bedtime just to see this. Yeah. Any more questions? Are we good? I think we're good. So, next Monday, I will be on at 8:20 again. I will try to get my kids in bed on time. Tonight, as soon as I was going to push go live, my daughter's like, Mama! So I'm like, oh. So I ran and got her. But, so, 8:20 next week. Yeah. Pacific Daylight Savings Time, West Coast, Washington State. So, you know, it'll be later for you guys if you're on the East Coast or Central Washington or Central United States. And then earlier for people in Hawaii. So I'll see you next week. Yay! Check your email at 11 a.m. Central Time for the newsletter. It'll come from National Quilters Circle. A few minutes after that, I will post the link in the group page, which, because as soon as I get my email, I wait for the email just so it's kind of like, I want you guys to get your email and be like excited about it. After I get my email, then I post it in the group. So you can always search for Andrea Smith, but it'll probably be in the pinned post. If my post isn't in the pinned post, it'll be someone from National Quilters Circle, like Justin or someone like that. So the pinned post is basically at the top of the discussion page. If you're on a computer, it'll be the very first post, and the link will be in there. Or it'll say, see pinned post, and you have to click on it on a mobile device. So next week at like 11:05, 11:10, and you're in the group, you're like, where's the link? Where's the link? Look at that pinned post or search Andrea Smith and I will have posted it. I'm also posting it after I post it in the group because, it's for the group. I go and I post it in my Facebook page, the Shop Happy Cloud Creations on Facebook. Also, I post it on my Instagram. So there are several places you can find it because I know, people get confused. Where is it? It's in the pinned post. And then also a little bit after that, it will be in the file section. So, we don't want to leave you hanging. It's in there. We're not forgetting about you. So Thursday, yay! And then I will see you next Monday, 8:20. So, good night. Good night, good night, good night.